The warm afternoon sun streamed through the arched windows of the Rosemont Grand Hotel, catching crystal chandeliers that sparkled like tiny stars. Standing at the dressing room mirror, I smoothed on a final touch of peach lipstick, my heart fluttering with joy and anticipation. Today, my younger brother Ethan would marry Claire, his partner of 5 steady years. Watching him find someone who balanced his cautious heart with her warmth filled me with gratitude. Since our parents died a decade ago, I'd stepped in almost like a second mother. So seeing him grow into a loving, confident man felt like the greatest reward. "Anna, you almost ready?" My husband Daniel called from the other side of the door. His voice carried the gentle calm that had anchored me for the past 14 years. A hint of nervous excitement crackled through it, as it always did on important days. "2 more minutes," I called back, dabbing away the faint tears that threatened to smear my mascara. The dress I wore, a floor-length emerald green gown Claire had chosen especially for me, fit me like a second skin. She'd said the color brought out the light in my hazel eyes, and for her wedding day, I wanted to honor every wish she'd had. Daniel stepped inside, his presence instantly grounding me. Even after so many years, seeing him in a perfectly tailored suit, his firefighter's frame, straight and sure, made my heart skip just like it had in our early days. "You look incredible," he murmured, placing his hands on my shoulders. "Thank you," I whispered, leaning back into his touch. He smiled, a grin that still made me weak in the knees. "Ethan's got to be the luckiest man on earth today." Claire looked radiant at the rehearsal yesterday. I can only imagine what she looks like in the dress today. My thoughts flickered to the rehearsal the day before. How Claire had teased us with a hint of lace and satin, refusing to reveal the full wedding gown. "She's going to be breathtaking, I'm sure," I said with a soft laugh. Daniel's brown eyes, always warm, crinkled with affection. We had no children of our own, but every day with him felt complete. He was my partner in every sense, my protector, like confidant, my home. "Ready to head to the ballroom?" he asked. "In a second," I replied, taking a last glance in the mirror. "I want to stop by and see Ethan before the ceremony, just to check on him." Daniel nodded with understanding, but his grin turned playful. "Don't make him cry before the vows. You know you have that effect on people." I laughed, remembering how I'd always been the emotional one in our family, tearing up at every graduation or milestone. "I'll try to keep it together," I promised, though I was certain I'd fail the moment Ethan walked down the aisle. As I stepped into the corridor lined with fresh white roses and ivy garlands, I let my mind wander through memories of childhood. Ethan had been the bright, easygoing boy, winning everyone's hearts effortlessly, while I had been the more serious, bookish older sister. People would say, "Ethan is so charming," while I was described as "Hannah is diligent but a little shy." In the years after our parents passed, that old sibling dynamic had softened into something warmer, a bond forged by shared grief. The Rosemont Grand was known for its over-the-top elegance, and today it looked like a fairy tale come to life. Crystal chandeliers, shimmering like rainbows, white lilies at every table, and rows of candles that bathed the entire space in a warm, golden glow. My gaze landed on the front row, where Lila had already taken a seat beside Ethan's best man's wife. She was glancing at me again, a small, secretive smile on her lips. I tried to ignore it, but something about it kept tugging at the edges of my mind. As the officiant took their place at the altar, guests began to hush. A hush of anticipation ran through the hall, and I felt my pulse quicken. Daniel squeezed my hand, and I smiled at him with all my heart. This was going to be a beautiful day, no matter what. We'd rebuilt our small family around each other, and I had promised to look after him for as long as I lived. Arriving at the groom's suite, I paused to knock. From inside came a familiar voice. "Come in." Opening the door, I found Ethan adjusting his tie with trembling fingers, surrounded by his best man and a couple of old college friends. His smile when he saw me was brighter than the midday sun. "Wow, Hannah," he said, his eyes going wide. "You look amazing." "You're the star today, Ethan," I replied, stepping forward to help steady his hands. Deep breaths. "You've done harder things, remember?" He chuckled nervously. "I'd rather run a marathon than stand up there with everyone watching." "But you're marrying Claire," I reminded him gently. "No one could wish for a better woman." He nodded, his eyes growing misty. "Yeah, she's everything." I smoothed down his tie and hugged him. For a second, I thought of Mom and Dad and wondered how proud they would have been if they could see him now, standing so strong. As I pulled away, I noticed another face in the room, a pale, slim woman standing in the corner, her long, dark hair pulled into an elegant chignon. Our cousin Leela. Leela and I hadn't been close for years. After a series of falling outs over money following our parents' death, she'd only just reconciled with Ethan a few months ago, promising to support his marriage. Seeing her here brought a strange twist of unease to my chest. "Hi, Hannah," she greeted me, her voice calm and measured. "You look lovely." "Thank you, Leela," I managed, though something about the way her eyes traced over my dress made me shiver. We had tried to bury the tension of our family disputes, especially for Ethan's sake. But even in this perfect day's happiness, there was a coolness in her smile that sent a quiet chill through my heart. I decided to shake it off. It's Ethan's wedding day, I reminded myself. No family drama. After making sure Ethan was steady, I left the suite, telling him I'd see him soon in the ceremony hall. The corridor was filled with the scent of roses and the low hum of arriving guests. I could hear a string quartet beginning their gentle prelude. I found Daniel waiting near the entrance to the ballroom, hands in his pockets, scanning for me. When he caught sight of me, his face softened with relief. "How's the groom?" "Terrified," I said, grinning, but in a good way. "Sounds about right." We entered the ballroom together, where over 100 guests had gathered. The music began, soft notes from the string quartet floating through the hall like a dream. My eyes turned toward the back of the ballroom, where Claire was about to enter. First came the bridesmaids, each graceful in matching dresses, their smiles lighting the way. Then Claire appeared, and the entire room seemed to exhale in awe. She wore a classic gown with a fitted lace bodice and a flowing satin skirt, the train catching the candlelight like a river of stars. As she moved, her veil shimmered softly around her glowing face. Ethan's face crumpled with emotion the second he saw her, and I felt my own eyes prick with tears. Claire walked slowly toward him, every step graceful, every movement measured. When she reached the front, Ethan took her hands with such tenderness that my heart nearly burst. The officiant began the ceremony, words of love and promise echoing through the air. I could feel Daniel's steady presence beside me, his hand resting warmly on my back, grounding me. Claire and Ethan spoke their vows, voices shaking with emotion, but strong with conviction. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. I remembered the day Daniel and I had made those same promises, and my chest filled with a fierce, protective love. These two had been through so much together already, and watching them pledge their future to one another reminded me that love, when genuine, was the most powerful force in the world. Rings were exchanged, tears fell, and when the officiant finally announced them, husband and wife, the room erupted in applause. Claire and Ethan shared a gentle, sweet kiss, sealing their bond. I clapped until my hands stung, overwhelmed by relief and happiness. As the guests stood cheering, Claire and Ethan walked down the aisle together, faces radiant with joy. They were showered with white rose petals, a moment so perfect it could have been from a movie. Daniel leaned close and whispered, "You okay?" I laughed through my tears. More than okay. The guests began filing out toward the cocktail hour, while the newlyweds posed for photos in the garden courtyard. I stayed back a moment, taking in the magic of it all. The hall slowly emptied, and I caught sight of Leela again, lingering near the back row. Her eyes met mine, and I could have sworn there was a flicker of something dark there. Resentment, or maybe regret. I couldn't tell, and I forced myself to look away. This was Ethan and Claire's day, and nothing could ruin it. At least, that was what I kept telling myself. The cocktail hour was in full swing when Daniel and I finally stepped outside. Tables with crystal flutes of champagne sparkled in the golden afternoon light. Trays of hors d'oeuvres floated past on the arms of uniformed servers, and laughter rose like music from the gathering guests. I saw Ethan and Claire across the garden, smiling for the photographer, looking as happy as any couple could be. It warmed me to the core. I turned to Daniel. "I think they'll be okay. They're strong together." Daniel nodded. "They have you in their corner too." That simple statement filled me with such gratitude that I nearly teared up again. Maybe I had tried too hard to protect Ethan all these years, but today proved he could stand tall on his own, and that made me proud beyond words. As the cocktail hour ended, everyone moved to the grand reception hall. Its vaulted ceilings and towering floral arrangements looked like something out of a fairy tale. The warm light of 1,000 candles reflected off mirrored table runners, creating a golden, romantic haze. Daniel and I took our seats near the family table, surrounded by Ethan and Claire's closest friends. Across from us, Leela sat down again, her eyes meeting mine, then darting away. Something inside me tensed, though I tried to hide it. I reminded myself again to stay calm for Ethan's sake. The music began softly, signaling the couple's entrance. The MC's voice boomed, introducing Mr. and Mrs. Ethan Walker. The applause rose so powerfully, it seemed to lift the entire hall. I stood with everyone else, clapping hard, smiling for the newlyweds. Claire had changed into a simpler reception gown, a pale pink creation that hugged her figure beautifully. She looked effortlessly elegant. Ethan, still wiping away happy tears, guided her to the head table. Their love was so genuine, it made me believe all over again that family was worth every heartache. As guests settled, Ethan stood to speak. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice cracking with emotion. "Claire and I are grateful beyond words for your support and love." Claire followed with her own words of gratitude, thanking everyone who had helped bring their dream day to life. I listened with a swelling heart, proud of the man Ethan had become. Just as he finished, I glanced across the table to see Leela's cold, assessing gaze fixed on me again, making my stomach knot. I tried to brush it off, but the unease stayed. Ethan and Claire moved on to their fizzed dance, a slow, graceful waltz that drew cheers and applause from the guests. The entire room seemed to glow with their happiness. I found Daniel's hand under the table and squeezed it. He smiled, giving me strength. As dinner was served, a beautiful array of seared salmon, beef tenderloin, and delicate side dishes, I let myself relax. Guests chatted and laughed, and I could finally take a breath. But then I noticed Leela, who had gotten up from her seat, quietly speaking to a waiter. Something about the sharpness in her tone made me pause. Why did she look so tense? I couldn't hear what she was saying, but the way she gestured toward our table set my nerves on edge. I leaned closer to Daniel, whispering, "Something's off." He looked at me with concern, then followed my gaze to where Lila was still talking in hushed tones to the waiter. Before I could stand to go over, she walked away, disappearing into the crowd. The waiter continued on, carrying a covered tray toward our family table. I felt a sudden chill run down my spine. No, it couldn't be. I tried to dismiss my worry, but instinct had already taken hold. Daniel must have sensed it too, because he leaned in, voice low, "I'll keep an eye on it." I nodded, willing myself to stay calm, though my hands were trembling slightly under the tablecloth. The music, the laughter, the glow of candles, none of it reached me in that moment. My mind kept replaying the look in Lila's eyes, and that same old familiar ache of betrayal squeezed my heart. When the waiter approached, I forced a smile, thanking him politely. He placed a plate in front of me, beautifully arranged with fresh greens and salmon, garnished with a light drizzle of sauce. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but my stomach twisted. Daniel watched every move, a quiet intensity in his eyes. I hesitated with my fork, then set it down. "I'm not really hungry," I lied. Daniel nodded, understanding. Across the table, Lila was watching, a small smirk on her lips that made my skin crawl. She raised her glass in a silent toast, as if mocking me. My heart thudded painfully in my chest. Could she? No, that was unthinkable. And yet, a voice in my head kept repeating the same warning. Trust your instincts. Beside me, Daniel placed a steady hand on my arm, giving me courage. The evening rolled on with toasts and laughter, but I felt disconnected, my mind circling around the plate in front of me like a hawk. Eventually, Daniel leaned in, whispering, "I'm going to ask the staff to check your dish, just in case." Gratitude surged through me. "Thank you," I mouthed back. He slipped away from the table quietly, speaking with one of the senior servers. Moments later, the dish was taken discreetly to the back. I watched Leela's face when she noticed, a flicker of annoyance, quickly masked with a sip of wine. That told me everything I needed to know. I felt my knees weaken, but I stayed upright, breathing carefully. Whatever had almost happened tonight, Daniel had saved me from it. I clung to that fact as the music rose and the newlyweds began making rounds to greet their guests, blissfully unaware. As Ethan and Claire came by, their joy radiated like sunlight. I stood to hug them both, fighting the tears that burned behind my eyes. Ethan grinned at me, Thanks for everything, sis. I swallowed hard, hugging him tighter than I meant to. Always, I whispered. Claire kissed my cheek, saying softly, "You're the best sister-in-law in the world." My throat nearly closed with emotion. Daniel returned to my side just then, a calm expression on his face. A silent nod that told me the dish had been safely removed. Relief flooded through me. The rest of the reception blurred after that. Dancing, cake cutting, speeches, all the traditional joys of a wedding played out like a dream. But in the corners of that dream, I saw Leela, quietly observing me, and a cold dread settled in my bones. It wasn't until the guests had begun to leave, hugging the happy couple goodbye, that I finally found the courage to confront her. I waited until she stepped away from the crowd, alone by the coat check. My heart hammered against my ribs as I walked over. "Lila," I began, voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "What did you say to that waiter tonight?" She arched one perfectly groomed brow, feigning confusion. "I don't know what you mean." "Don't lie to me," I snapped, surprising even myself. Her expression darkened, the fake smile dropping. "Stay out of things that don't concern you, Hannah," she hissed, voice so low no one else could hear. "Ethan is my brother. Everything about him concerns me." I fired back, feeling a surge of protectiveness. Lila sighed, rolling her eyes. "You're always so perfect, aren't you? Always looking out for everyone, always the golden sister." Her words dripped poison. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, confused and angry. She stepped closer, her breath sharp with champagne. "All those years you took everything. Dad's respect, Mom's love, Ethan's loyalty. You left nothing for me." I recoiled, stunned. "This is about old resentments? You'd go this far?" Her lips curled. I deserved something, and if I couldn't get it fairly, then maybe a little accident tonight would balance the scales. My knees nearly gave out. The confirmation of my worst fear left me dizzy. "I can't believe you," I whispered. "You'd really risk killing me?" "You're stronger than you think," she sneered. "You would have survived." I felt sick, bile rising in my throat. Before I could say another word, Daniel appeared at my side, calm but firm. "I think you should leave," he told Leela, in a voice that brooked no argument. She glared at him, then at me, but finally spun on her heel and stalked away without another word. I felt the strength drain from my body, and Daniel caught me before I collapsed. "It's okay," he whispered. "She's gone." I leaned against him, sobbing quietly. How had such hatred grown in my own family? The betrayal was almost too much to hold. Daniel led me out to the car, away from the glittering hall that had held so many dreams only hours before. In the quiet of the parking lot, I tried to breathe, to calm the shaking in my hands. Pause. Daniel gently guided me into the passenger seat, then slid in behind the wheel. The drive home was silent, except for our breathing and the hum of the road. My mind replayed Lila's words over and over, each one a wound that refused to close. When we pulled into our driveway, Daniel turned off the ignition and faced me. "We'll deal with this," he promised, his eyes steady. "You're safe, and that's what matters." I nodded, though tears still slid down my cheeks. "I don't know how to face Ethan," I admitted. Daniel squeezed my hand. "When the time is right, he'll need to know. But for now, rest, one step at a time." I let out a shaky breath. grateful beyond words for this man who had saved me from a nightmare. Inside our house, the normalness of everything felt surreal. I slipped off my shoes and sat on the couch, staring at the floor. Daniel brought me a glass of water and sat beside me, holding my hand in silence. Finally, I looked up. "She was going to poison me," I whispered, still struggling to say it out loud. "I know," he said softly. "I saw it too." My whole body trembled. How did we get here? It was supposed to be the happiest day. Daniel pulled me into a hug. "Sometimes people carry darkness you can't see," he murmured. "That doesn't mean you have to carry it too." I let his words sink in, slowly letting the weight slide off my shoulders. It was the beginning of healing, I hoped.